the stepmother cruelly kicked out her stepson. But when the father returned home and learned the truth, the Thompson household had never been a warm one, but it had at least been stable. That was until Caroline Thompson decided that her 14-year-old stepson, Alex, no longer had a place in their home. James Thompson, Alex's father and Caroline's husband of 2 years, was away on a crucial business trip that could make or break his career. He had no idea of the storm brewing at home. Alex was a quiet, introspective boy who had never quite recovered from the loss of his mother to cancer 3 years ago. Caroline, with her loud voice and domineering personality, was his polar opposite. From the day she moved in, there had been tension. She found Alex's quietness unsettling, interpreting it as rudeness or defiance. Alex, in turn, retreated further into himself, missing the gentle presence of his mother more with each passing day. James, caught between his son and his new wife, tried his best to keep the peace. But his long hours at work and frequent business trips left Alex and Caroline to navigate their difficult relationship alone. He convinced himself that time would smooth things over, that Caroline would eventually warm to Alex, and Alex would come to accept Caroline as part of the family. How wrong he had been. As James boarded his flight for a week-long conference in Tokyo, he had no inkling of the crisis that would unfold in his absence. His last image of home was Caroline's bright smile and Alex's half-hearted wave from the doorway. If only he had looked closer, he might have seen the storm clouds gathering in Caroline's eyes, fear and resignation in Alex's slumped shoulders. But he didn't. And so, as his plane took off, James Thompson left his son at the mercy of a woman who had reached the end of her patience, a woman who was about to make a decision that would shatter their family forever. The first day after James left passed in tense silence. Caroline busied herself with housework, pointedly ignoring Alex as he moved quietly through the house. Alex, sensing the heightened tension, tried to make himself as invisible as possible, retreating to his room after school and only emerging for meals. It was at dinner on the second day that the powder keg finally exploded. Alex, lost in thought, accidentally knocked over his glass of water. As it spilled across the table, soaking the tablecloth and dripping onto Caroline's lap, patience snapped. "You clumsy, useless boy," she shrieked, jumping up from her chair. "Look what you've done. Can't you do anything right?" Alex stammered an apology, reaching for napkins to mop up the spill. But Caroline was beyond reason. Years of resentment came pouring out in a torrent of cruel words. "I'm sick of this. Sick of tiptoeing around you. Sick of your moping and your sullen silences. You're not a child anymore, Alex. It's time you grew up and stopped acting like the world owes you something just because your mother died." Alex recoiled as if he'd been slapped. Tears welled up in his eyes. Caroline wasn't finished. "Oh, here come the waterworks again. Crying won't bring her back, you know. It's time you accepted that and stopped making everyone around you miserable. I've had it with your attitude, with cleaning up your messes. I'm done." She stormed out of the dining room, leaving Alex frozen in shock. He could hear her stomping around upstairs, drawers slamming and closet doors banging. When she returned, she was carrying a duffel bag which she threw at Alex's feet. "Pack your things," she said, voice cold. "I want you out of this house." Alex stared at her in disbelief. "What? But where am I supposed to go?" Caroline shrugged, her eyes hard. "That's not my problem. Your father coddled you for too long. It's time you learned how the real world works. Pack your bag and get out. Now." Trembling, Alex did as he was told. He stuffed some clothes into the bag, along with his phone charger and a framed photo of his mother. As he zipped up the bag, reality began to sink in. "Please," he begged, "don't do this. I'm sorry about the water. I'll be better. Promise." But Caroline was unmoved. She grabbed Alex by the arm and marched him to the front door. "I've made my decision. You're not welcome here anymore." With that, she shoved Alex out onto the porch and slammed the door behind him. Alex stood there, bag in hand, unable to believe what had just happened. He knocked on the door, calling out to Caroline, begging her to let him back in. But there was no response. The house remained dark and silent. As night fell, Alex realized he had nowhere to go. His few friends lived too far to walk, and he was too ashamed to call them anyway. How could he explain this? With no money for a bus or taxi, he found himself wandering the streets, lost and alone. He ended up in a small park, huddling on a bench as the temperature dropped. Clutching his bag to his chest, Alex finally let his tears fall. Pride for his lost mother, for his absent father, and for the home that had been taken from him. As he drifted into an uneasy sleep, his last thought was a desperate wish for his father to come home and make everything right again. The next morning, Alex woke up stiff and cold on the park bench. For a moment, he was disoriented, not understanding why he wasn't in his bed. Then, the memories of the previous night came flooding back, and with them, a fresh wave of despair. He rummaged through his bag, hoping to find some money or food, but there was nothing. His stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten since that fateful dinner. With no other options, Alex began to walk, hoping to find somewhere he could get warm and maybe find something to eat. As he wandered the streets, Alex felt invisible. People hurried past, absorbed in their own lives, not sparing a glance for the disheveled teenager. He found himself outside his school, couldn't bring himself to go in. How could he explain his situation? What if they called Caroline? By afternoon, hunger and thirst were consuming his thoughts. He spotted a water fountain in another park and gratefully drank his fill. For food, he resorted to checking trash cans outside restaurants, feeling a deep shame as he retrieved half-eaten sandwiches and bruised fruit. As night fell again, the reality of his situation truly sank in. He was homeless. The thought brought a fresh round of tears. He missed his room, his bed, even the tense silence of home. Most of all, he missed his father. Why hadn't he called? Surely Caroline had told him what happened, but Alex's phone remained silent. Either Caroline hadn't told his father, or worse, his father didn't care. Thought was too painful to bear. Finding a secluded spot behind some bushes in the park, Alex curled up with his bag as a pillow. He shivered in the cool night air, wishing for the warmth and safety of home. As he drifted off into an uneasy sleep, he wondered how long he could survive like this. And he prayed, for the first time in years, for someone, anyone, to come and rescue him from this nightmare. James Thompson sat in his Tokyo hotel room, staring at his phone in disbelief. He had just finished a call with his neighbor, Mrs. Patel, and his world had been turned upside down. "I'm sorry to bother you, Mr. Thompson," Mrs. Patel had said, her voice filled with concern, "but I thought you should know. I saw Alex leaving the house 2 nights ago with a bag. He looked upset. I haven't seen him since, and when I asked Caroline about it, she just said he was staying with friends. Something doesn't feel right." James's mind raced. Alex staying with friends, without telling him? Didn't make sense. He immediately tried calling home, but Caroline didn't pick up. He then tried Alex's cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. A sense of dread began to build in the pit of his stomach. He called Caroline again and again until finally she answered. "James, what's wrong? It's the middle of the night here." "Caroline, where's Alex?" James demanded, not bothering with pleasantries. There was a pause too long to be innocent. "He's staying with friends," Caroline said, her voice carefully neutral. "He was being difficult? So I thought some time apart would do us good." "What friends, Caroline? Why didn't anyone tell me about this?" Another pause. I'm not sure which friend. He left in a huff. I assumed he'd call you." James felt his anger rising. "You let my 14-year-old son leave the house to stay with you don't know who, and you didn't think to tell me? What the hell is going on, Caroline?" Caroline's composure finally broke. "He's impossible, James. Always moping around, making messes, being disrespectful. Couldn't take it anymore. I told him to leave, to grow up a little. He'll come back when he's ready to behave." James felt as if the floor had dropped out from under him. "You did what?" he whispered, his voice deadly quiet. "You threw my son out of his own home?" "Our home," Caroline corrected, but her voice was small. "James, you don't understand what it's been like." But James was no longer listening. "I'm coming home," he said, cutting her off. "And Caroline, you better pray we find Alex safe and sound, or so help me God." He hung up without waiting for a response and immediately began packing his bags. His hands shook as he threw clothes haphazardly into his suitcase. How could this have happened? How could he have been so blind to the problems at home? As he rushed to the airport, James's mind was filled with terrible images of Alex alone on the street. His son? his boy, who had already lost so much, now abandoned by the people who were supposed to protect him. James managed to get on the first available flight back to the States, but the journey felt interminable. Every minute that passed was another minute Alex was alone and vulnerable. He alternated between crushing guilt and blazing anger. Guilt at having failed his son so completely, and anger at Caroline for her cruelty and at himself for his neglect. As the plane finally touched down, James made a solemn vow. He would find Alex, bring him home, and make this right. Whatever it took, he would rebuild his family and be the father Alex needed him to be. And Caroline, well, he would deal with her later. For now, all that mattered was finding his son. James burst through the front door of his home, his face a storm of emotions. Caroline, who had been pacing nervously in the living room, jumped at his sudden entrance. "James, I didn't expect you back, so where is he?" James cut her off, voice low and dangerous. "Where's my son, Caroline?" Caroline wrung her hands, earlier bravado evaporating in the face of her husband's anger. I don't know. He left, James. I told you on the phone. You told me he was staying with friends." James spat. "But now I find out you kicked him out, threw a 14-year-old boy onto the street? What were you thinking? He was impossible to live with." Caroline cried, her own anger flaring. "Always moping, making messes, never talking. I couldn't take it anymore. I thought he'd go to a friend's house, or call you. I didn't think." "No, you didn't think," James interrupted. "You didn't think about his safety or his well-being. You didn't think about the fact that he's a child who lost his mother. You only thought about yourself." Caroline flinched at his words, tears forming in her eyes. "That's not fair, James. You don't know what it's been like, living with his constant sadness, feeling like an intruder in my own home. You're never here. You left me to deal with everything alone." James ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. "So you punish Alex for my failures? He's a child, Caroline, a grieving, hurting child, and you threw him away like he was nothing." "I didn't mean for this to happen," Caroline whispered, sinking onto the couch. "I was just so angry. I thought he'd come back after a few hours or call one of us. I never meant for him to be out there alone." James looked at his wife, seeing her clearly for the first time. The woman he had married, who he thought would be a loving stepmother to his son, suddenly seemed small and selfish. He felt a deep sadness, realizing that his family had been broken long before this incident. "I'm going to find my son," James said, his voice firm. "And when I do, we're coming back here. This is his home, Caroline. If you can't accept that, if you can't find it in your heart to love him as I do, then you need to be the one to leave. Not Alex. Never Alex." Caroline looked up, shock written across her face. "You'd choose him over me, your own wife?" "He's my son," James said simply. "He will always come first. I'm sorry if I ever made you feel otherwise. That's on me, but what you did, Caroline, I don't know if I can forgive that." With those words hanging in the air, James turned and walked out the door, leaving Caroline alone with her thoughts and regrets. As he got into his car to begin the search for Alex, James felt a mix of determination and fear. He had no idea where to start looking, but he knew he wouldn't rest until he found his boy and brought him home. Confrontation with Caroline had cleared his mind. Whatever happened next, whatever state he found Alex in, James knew that things would have to change. He had failed his son once. He wouldn't fail him again. James drove through the darkening streets, his eyes scanning every corner, every alley, searching for any sign of Alex. He started with the obvious places: Alex's school, the local park where he used to play basketball, the library where he often studied. But there was no trace of his son at any of these familiar haunts. As the night wore on, James expanded his search, driving through neighborhoods he'd never visited before, peering into the shadows of underpasses and abandoned buildings. The image of Alex, alone and afraid, spurred him on despite his exhaustion. He stopped at homeless shelters, showing Alex's photo to staff and residents alike. Some were sympathetic, promising to keep an eye out, but none had seen the boy. James left his number everywhere he went, hoping against hope that someone would call with information. At one point, he thought he saw a figure that looked like Alex huddled in a doorway. His heart leapt as he quickly parked the car and ran towards the spot. only to find a different homeless teen who looked at him with wary eyes. James gave the boy some money for food, his heart heavy with the realization that this could be Alex's fate. He didn't find him soon. As dawn broke, James found himself in a rundown part of town he barely recognized. He was about to turn back when he spotted a small park tucked between two dilapidated buildings. Something made him stop the car and get out. The park was little more than a patch of scrubby grass with a rusty swing set and a few benches. As James walked through, his footsteps crunching on the frost-covered grass, he heard a soft sound. It was coming from behind a cluster of overgrown bushes. Heart-pounding, James pushed through the branches. There, curled up on the cold ground, was Alec. His son's face was pale and drawn, his clothes dirty and rumpled. He was shivering in his sleep, clutching his duffel bag like a lifeline. "Alex," James breathed, falling to his knees beside the boy. "Oh, Alex, I'm here. Dad's here." At the sound of his father's voice, Alex stirred. His eyes fluttered open, confusion giving way to disbelief and then to a flood of emotion. "Dad?" Croaked, his voice hoarse from cold and disuse. James gathered his son into his arms, holding him tight as Alex began to sob. "I'm sorry," the boy cried, his words muffled against his father's chest. "I'm sorry. Please don't send me away again. I'll be better, I promise." James felt his own tears fall as he stroked Alex's hair. "No, son. I'm the one who's sorry. I'm so sorry. You're coming home now. I'm never letting you go again." He helped Alex to his feet, supporting the boy's weight as they made their way back to the car. As he settled Alex into the passenger seat, wrapping him in a blanket he kept in the trunk, James felt a fierce protectiveness wash over him. He had come so close to losing his son, not just to the streets, but to his own neglect and Caroline's cruelty. As he started the car, James made a silent vow to never let Alex down again. The drive home was quiet, punctuated only by Alex's occasional sniffles and the hum of the car heater working overtime. James kept glancing over at his son, reassuring himself that Alex was really there, safe beside him. The boy looked small and fragile, huddled under the blanket, his eyes red-rimmed, haunted. As they neared their neighborhood, James cleared his throat. "Alex," said gently, "we need to talk about what happened. But first, I want you to know that none of this was your fault. Do you understand? None of it." Alex nodded slightly but didn't speak. James continued, "What Caroline did was wrong, terribly, unforgivably wrong. I want you to know that you will never have to leave your home again. Never." At this, Alex turned to look at his father, open fear warring in his eyes. But Caroline said. "Caroline was wrong," James said firmly. "This is your home, Alex. You belong here, with me." They pulled into the driveway, and James saw Alex tense up at the sight of the house. "It's okay," he reassured his son. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm here now." As they walked to the front door, it opened to reveal Caroline. She looked like she hadn't slept, her hair disheveled and her eyes puffy from crying. When she saw Alex, she gasped. "Oh, thank God," she breathed, stepping forward. But James put a protective arm around Alex, stopping Caroline in her tracks. "Not now," James said, his voice low but firm. "Alex needs rest and care. We'll talk later." He guided Alex past Caroline and up the stairs to the boy's room. Alex paused in the doorway, looking around as if seeing it for the first time. "It's still here," he murmured. "My room. It's still here." James felt his heart break a little more. "Of course it is, son. This is your home. It always will be." He helped Alex get cleaned up and into fresh clothes, then tucked him into bed. As he turned to leave, Alex's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. "Don't go," pleaded, his voice small and afraid. "Please don't leave me again." James didn't hesitate. He kicked off his shoes and lay down next to his son, holding him close. "I'm not going anywhere, Alex. I promise. I'm right here." As Alex drifted off to sleep, exhausted from his ordeal, James lay awake, his mind racing. He knew there were difficult conversations and decisions ahead. For now, all that mattered was that his son was safe and home. Downstairs, Caroline paced nervously, waiting for James to come down. When he finally did, hours later, his face was set in grim lines. "James," she began, but he held up a hand to stop her. "I don't want to hear it, Caroline. Not now. Maybe not ever. What you did, I don't even have words for it." Caroline's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was just so frustrated and..." And you took it out on a child, James interrupted. My child? A boy who's already lost so much. Do you have any idea what could have happened to him out there? Caroline sank onto the couch, her face in her hands. What can I do? She asked, her voice muffled. How can I make this right? James sighed heavily, suddenly feeling every hour of the sleepless nights and worry. I don't know if you can, Caroline. Right now, the only thing that matters is Alex's well-being, and I'm not sure if having you here is good for him. Caroline's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock. What are you saying? I'm saying that I think you should leave, Caroline. At least for now. Alex needs to feel safe in his own home, and right now, that's not possible with you here. You're choosing him over me? Caroline asked, her voice rising. After everything we've been through? James looked at her, really looked at her, and felt a deep sadness. He's my son, Caroline. He will always come first. I thought you understood that when we got married. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear enough. Caroline stood up, anger and hurt warring on her face. So that's it? You're just throwing me out, just like that? No, James said quietly. I'm asking you to leave. For Alex's sake, and for ours. We all need time to process what's happened and decide where we go from here. But right now, my priority is my son. Caroline stared at him for a long moment, then nodded stiffly. Fine, I'll pack a bag. But this isn't over, James. We need to talk about this. As she headed upstairs, James sank into a chair, feeling the weight of the past few days crashing down on him. He knew the road ahead would be difficult. Rebuilding his relationship with Alex, dealing with the fallout of Caroline's actions, possibly even ending his marriage, was all overwhelming. But as he heard Alex's soft breathing from upstairs, James felt a renewed sense of purpose. His son needed him, and this time, he wouldn't fail. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The days that followed were a delicate dance of healing and confrontation. With Caroline gone, staying at a nearby hotel, the house felt both emptier and more peaceful. Alex slowly began to relax, no longer flinching at small noises or looking over his shoulder constantly. James took time off work, dedicating himself to helping Alex recover from his ordeal. They spent long hours talking, James finally hearing the full extent of the tension and unhappiness that had been building in the house. He listened with a heavy heart as Alex described feeling unwelcome and unloved in his own home. Caroline's constant criticism and cold shoulder. Why didn't you tell me? James asked, his voice thick with emotion. Alex shrugged, looking down at his hands. I didn't want to cause trouble, and I was afraid you'd take her side, that you'd think I was the problem. James pulled his son into a tight hug. Never, he said fiercely. You are never the problem, Alex. I'm so sorry I made you feel like you couldn't come to me. That ends now, okay? No more secrets between us. As Alex began to heal, James knew they couldn't avoid the Caroline situation forever. A week after Alex's return, he sat his son down for a difficult conversation. Alex began gently. We need to talk about Caroline, about what happens next. Alex tensed immediately, fear flashing in his eyes. James quickly continued. Nothing will happen that you're not comfortable with. You come first, always. We need to decide how to move forward. Alex was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a small voice, he asked, Do you still love her? James sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's complicated, Alex. I care about Caroline, but what she did, it's not something I can easily forgive, and my love for you will always come first. Alex nodded, seeming to gather his courage. I don't want her to come back, he said finally. I know she's your wife, but I don't feel safe with her here. I'm sorry, Dad. James felt a mixture of relief and sadness at his son's words. You have nothing to be sorry for, Alex. Your feelings are completely valid. If you're not comfortable with Caroline being here, then she won't be here. It's as simple as that. The next day, James met Caroline at a neutral location, quiet cafe in town. Tension between them was palpable as they sat across from each other. Two people who had once pledged to spend their lives together, now feeling like strangers. How's Alex? Caroline asked, breaking the silence. He's doing better, James replied. It'll take time, but he's resilient. Caroline nodded, then took a deep breath. James, I know what I did was terrible. I've had a lot of time to think, and I realize now how wrong I was. Is there any way we can move past this? Can we try to be a family again? James looked at her, seeing the hope and regret in her eyes. But he also remembered Alex's fear, the pain in his son's voice when he said he didn't feel safe with Caroline around. "I'm sorry, Caroline," he said softly. "But no, what happened, it's not something we can just move past. Alex doesn't feel safe with you in the house, and honestly, I don't trust you with him anymore." Caroline's face crumpled. "So that's it? Our marriage is over?" James nodded slowly. "I think it has to be, for Alex's sake and for ours. We tried, Caroline, but we want different things. You never fully accepted Alex as part of your life, and I can't be with someone who can't love my son." Tears rolled down Caroline's cheeks, but she didn't argue. Deep down, she had known this was coming. "What happens now?" she asked. "I'll have my lawyer draw up divorce papers," James said. "We'll do this as amicably as possible. You can take whatever you brought into the marriage and we'll split what we acquired together. But the house stays with me and Alex." Caroline wiped her eyes and nodded. "I understand. For what it's worth, James, I am truly sorry. I never meant for things to go this far." As they parted ways, James felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he knew he had made the right decision. His family might be smaller now, but it would be stronger. When he got home, he found Alex waiting anxiously. "Is she coming back?" the boy asked, his voice trembling slightly. James sat next to his son, putting an arm around him. "No, she's not. It's just going to be you and me from now on, buddy. Is that okay?" Alex leaned into his father's embrace, relief evident in every line of his body. "Yeah, Dad, that's more than okay." As they sat there together, James knew that they had a lot of healing ahead of them. But for the first time in a long time, he felt hopeful about their future. They were a family, small, a bit battered, but unbreakable. And together, they would be okay. The weeks that followed were a time of healing and rediscovery for both James and Alex. With Caroline gone and the divorce proceedings underway, they focused on rebuilding their relationship and creating a new normal for their small family. James arranged for Alex to see a therapist, recognizing that the trauma of being kicked out and living on the streets wasn't something they could work through on their own. Initially reluctant, Alex soon found comfort in having a neutral party to talk to about his feelings. At home, James made a concerted effort to be more present and attentive. Cut back on his work hours, making sure he was home for dinner every night. They started a new tradition of cooking meals together, something that had fallen by the wayside in recent years. These simple acts of domesticity became a form of therapy in themselves, allowing father and son to reconnect for chopping vegetables and stirring pots. Alex slowly began to come out of his shell. The constant fear and anxiety that had marked his demeanor in the first days after his return gradually eased. He started smiling more, even laughing at his father's admittedly terrible jokes. James treasured these moments, each one a small victory in their journey of recovery. They also worked on creating new memories to replace the painful one. Every weekend, they would go on what Alex jokingly called their adventure days. Sometimes this meant hiking in a nearby state park. Other times it was exploring a new part of the city or trying out a quirky restaurant. These outings became a cherished time for both of them, a chance to bond and simply enjoy each other's company. One evening, as they sat on the couch watching a movie, Alex suddenly turned to his father. "Dad," he said hesitantly, "I want you to know I don't blame you for what happened. With Caroline, I mean." James paused the movie, turning to face his son. "Thank you for saying that, Alex. But I do bear some responsibility. I should have seen what was happening, should have protected you better." Alex shook his head. "You couldn't have known. I didn't tell you how bad things were. I thought I could handle it on my own." James pulled his son into a hug. "You don't have to handle anything on your own anymore, okay? We're a team, you and me, no matter what." As Alex hugged him back, James felt a surge of love and pride for his son. Despite everything he had been through, Alex had found the strength to forgive, move forward. It was a resilience James hoped to emulate. The road to recovery wasn't always smooth. There were still nights when Alex would wake up in a panic, momentarily forgetting he was safe at home. James would sit with him, reassuring him until he calmed down. And there were days when the weight of everything that had happened would crash down on James, leaving him feeling guilty and overwhelmed. But through it all, they had each other. They were learning to communicate better, to lean on each other in times of need. Slowly but surely, they were healing, not just as individuals, but as a family. As spring turned to summer, James noticed a lightness in Alex that he hadn't seen in years. His son was laughing more, engaging more with his friends, showing interest in his hobbies again. Watching Alex shoot hoops in the driveway one afternoon, James felt a profound sense of gratitude. They had weathered the storm together and come out stronger on the other side. Their family might be smaller now, but it was filled with more love and understanding than ever before. And for James and Alex, that was more than enough. As part of their healing process, James and Alex began attending family therapy sessions together. It was a challenging but necessary step in addressing the deep-seated issues that had led to their family crisis. In these sessions, they learned to communicate more effectively, to express their feelings without fear of judgment. Alex found the courage to voice his long-held insecurities, his fear of abandonment that had been exacerbated by Caroline's action. James, in turn, opened up about his own struggles, the guilt he felt over not being there for Alex after his mother's death, pressure he put on himself to be the perfect father and provider. Their therapist, Dr. Laura, helped them develop coping strategies and set healthy boundaries. She emphasized the importance of open dialogue and quality time together. Under her guidance, James and Alex created a family charter, a set of rules and commitments they both agreed to follow. This charter included promises like, "We will always be honest with each other, even when it's difficult," and "We will make time for family dinner at least 5 nights a week." It also outlined consequences for breaking these rules, agreed upon by both father and son. One of the most significant outcomes of these sessions was Alex's decision to start a journal. Dr. Laura suggested it as a way for him to process his emotions and experiences. Initially skeptical, Alex found that writing helped him make sense of his feelings in a way that talking sometimes couldn't. James, for his part, committed to being more emotionally available. He started sharing more about his own life and feelings with Alex, breaking down the wall of stoic fatherhood he had unconsciously built. These changes didn't happen overnight. There were setbacks and difficult days, but with each session, each honest conversation, they grew closer and stronger as a family unit. By addressing their issues head-on, James and Alex were laying a new foundation for their relationship. They were learning not just to coexist, but to truly understand and support each other. It was hard work, but as they began to see the positive changes in their daily lives, both father and son knew it was worth every challenging moment. As summer faded into autumn, the Thompson household settled into a new rhythm. The divorce was finalized, bringing a sense of closure to that chapter of their lives. Caroline had moved to another state for a fresh start, and while the separation had been painful, James knew it was for the best. With the legal matters settled, James and Alex focused on solidifying the positive changes they had made over the past few months. Their family charter had evolved, becoming a living document that they revisited and adjusted as needed. It hung prominently in the kitchen, a daily reminder of their commitment to each other and to their new family dynamic. One significant change was in James's career. After much soul-searching and discussion with Alex, he decided to scale back his workload permanently. He negotiated a part-time consulting role that allowed him to be home more while still contributing his expertise to the company. The reduction in income was offset by the immeasurable gain in time spent with his son. This change opened up new opportunities for father and son to connect. James started coaching Alex's basketball team, something he had always wanted to do but never had time for before. The experience brought them closer, with Alex appreciating his father's dedication and James marveling at his son's growing skills and confidence on the court. Alex, too, was flourishing. The support of therapy and his stronger relationship with his father, he began to come out of his shell at school. He joined the debate club, discovering a passion for public speaking that surprised both him and James. His grades improved, and he started talking about college and future career aspirations, discussions that filled James with pride and a bittersweet awareness of how quickly his son was growing up. Their home, once a place of tension and unspoken resentments, became a haven of warmth and open communication. They redecorated together, choosing colors and furnishings that reflected their shared tastes. Alex's art, which he had started creating as part of his therapy, now adorned the walls alongside family. The house felt lived in, loved, true reflection of the family that called it home. One particularly significant change came in how they honored the memory of Alex's mother. In the years since her passing, her name had become almost taboo, too painful for either of them to mention. But as they healed, they found the strength to bring her back into their lives in a positive way. They created a memory corner in the living room, photos of her and small mementos of her life. On her birthday and the anniversary of her death, they started a tradition of sharing stories about her, keeping her memory alive for Alex and allowing James to remember the good times rather than just the pain of loss. As the one-year mark of the incident, as they had taken to calling it, approached, James noticed Alex becoming quieter, more introspective. Concerned, he gently broached the subject one evening after dinner. "You've seemed a bit down lately," James said as they sat on the porch swing. "Is everything okay?" Alex was quiet for a moment, then said, "I've been thinking about that night when Caroline kicked me out." James felt a pang in his heart. "Oh, Alex, I'm so sorry. Do you want to talk about it?" Alex nodded slowly. "I thought I was over it, but as the date gets closer, I keep having these flashbacks. Nightmares sometimes." James put his arm around his son's shoulders. "That's completely normal, Alex. Trauma doesn't just disappear, even when things are better. But you know what? I'm so proud of how far you've come. You're the strongest person I know." Alex leaned into his father's embrace. "Thanks, Dad. I couldn't have done it without you. I was thinking, maybe we could do something on that day? Not to celebrate exactly, but to mark how far we've come." James smiled, touched by his son's resilience and wisdom. "I think that's a great idea. What did you have in mind?" They decided to spend the day giving back to the community. They volunteered at the local homeless shelter, James acutely aware that, but for a twist of fate, Alex could have ended up in a place like this. They served meals, sorted donations, and spent time talking with the residents. For Alex, it was a powerful experience. He connected with some of the younger residents, sharing his story and offering words of encouragement. James watched with a mixture of pride and awe as his son, who had been through so much, found the strength to help others. As they drove home that evening, tired but fulfilled, Alex turned to his father. "Dad," he said, his voice serious, "I want you to know, I'm okay, really okay. What happened was terrible, but look at us now, we're stronger than ever." James felt tears prick his eyes. "We are, aren't we? I'm so proud of you, Alex, and I'm grateful every day that I get to be your dad." That night, as James lay in bed, reflecting on the day, he felt a profound sense of peace. The past year had been a journey of pain, growth, and ultimately, redemption. They had faced their darkest moment and emerged stronger, their bond unbreakable. He thought about the changes they had made, in their home, in their relationship, in themselves. None of it had been easy, but every challenge had been worth it. They had rebuilt their family, just the two of them, on a foundation of love, trust, and mutual respect. As he drifted off to sleep, James felt truly hopeful for the future. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew that he and Alex would face them together, their bond strengthened by the trials they had overcome. They were more than just father and son now. They were a team, family in the truest sense of the word. As the new school year began, James and Alex found themselves settling into a comfortable routine. Their mornings were filled with shared breakfasts and easy conversation, far cry from the tense silences of the past. Alex headed off to school with a confidence that made James's heart swell with pride, while James divided his time between his consulting work and various community volunteering projects. Their evenings were a mix of homework sessions, basketball practice, and quiet nights at home. They had instituted a weekly movie night, taking turns choosing films and often ending up in deep discussions about the themes and characters long after the credits had rolled. The house, once a battleground, had become a true home. Laughter echoed through the rooms more often than not, and friends, both Alex's and James's, were frequent visitors. The Thompsons had become known in the neighborhood as the go-to place for impromptu barbecues and game nights. As James watched Alex interact with his friends, cracking jokes and debating the merits of different video games, he marveled at the transformation. Gone was the withdrawn, fearful boy of a year ago. In his place was a confident, empathetic young man who was coming into his own. There were still challenges. Worse, Alex occasionally had bad days when memories of the past would surface. James, too, sometimes struggled with guilt over what had happened. But they faced these moments together, armed with the communication skills and mutual understanding they had worked so hard to develop. Their little family of two was thriving, proof that with love, perseverance, and a willingness to change, even the deepest wounds heal.